Good morning, everyone. I'm Pramila Venkateshwaran, President of Now Suffolk. I'm so glad that you're all here, and this is a very important event, a very important meeting at this particular moment in our history. When on 16th September, 22-year-old Masa Amini died in police custody in Iran after she was arrested 3 days earlier for improper hijab transgression. Men and women took to the streets protesting against the regime's violation of their rights. More than 300 protesters have been killed and thousands arrested, including journalists. In the US last June, the Dobbs ruling overthrowing Roe has resulted in the ban against abortions, following in quick succession in many states. We see the common theme of misogyny playing out in Iran and in the US, attacks on our basic rights. Today we have two amazing speakers, Senator Anna Kaplan and poet Rooja Mohassessy, speaking to us as we stand in solidarity with Iranian people demanding our rights. So I would like to ask Susan Hindley, our Vice President, to introduce Senator Kaplan. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, we are so thrilled to have Senator Kaplan, and also very honored to have as her interlocutor for today's session, Betty Imamian, who has been a galvanizing force in Iranian American women's cultural and political rights, not only here in the greater New York City metropolitan area, where she's very involved as a member of the Women's Leadership Forum of the DNC, and in organizing the Persian Parade Foundation, but also internationally, which is what we're here today to talk about. She was key to the big march, many thousands strong, that was held in October in New York City to protest the murder of Amini and to support the women in Iran. So I will quickly turn it over to Betty, and she and Senator Kaplan will have their discussion at the end. There'll be an opportunity for everyone on the call to pose their own questions. Okay, so Betty, you want to take over?
Of course. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Without further ado, I'm just going to start with Senator Kaplan, who we're very proud. She was the first Iranian American, needless to say, a woman, to be elected to her position in New York. And we're very, very proud of her as an Iranian American, as an Iranian American woman, and also as a politician. And she has been a key advocate in many, many avenues, and we're proud to have her represent us at all levels. So, Senator Kaplan, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
I would like to start, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and also, why did you run for office?
So first, let me thank Suffolk Now, Camila and Susan, for this opportunity. And I want to thank everyone who's actually participating in this Zoom. And I'm honored to be here and to speak with all of you. My name is Anna Kaplan. I was born in Tabriz, Iran, and I came to this country at age 13 in late 1979. It was right after the Iran Revolution. I was in Iran when the king Shah fell and Ayatollah Khomeini came into power. I saw how an extremist right wing started taking control over small communities and then took over the whole country. And my parents saw that this was not really a place that they felt comfortable raising their daughter. A country that basically holds women as secondhand citizens. They sent me to US at age 13. I came with 39 other kids. And it took about 2 years till my parents were able to join me and for our family to unite here. I always talk about how privileged I've been to have come to this country and to have so many opportunities available to me. I went to high school, then college, and then law school. I did not practice. I got married, had my couple of children, my 2 daughters, and I was asked to run for a library board in my community in Nassau County, in Great Neck. And I ran for that seat because I really felt that it was important to give back. And as much as I hated public speaking, I hated being a center of attention, I ran for the library board because I wanted to give back in my own way, the great opportunities that I've had. And it was based on that race that, and I served for 4 years on the board. I was asked to run for town council seat in town of North Hempstead, representing the 4th district, and served on that board for 7 years, almost 2 terms. And in 2018, I got calls from some students, high school students in my district, asking to meet with me. And they were telling me how concerned they were. It was right after Parkland shooting, how concerned they were, and they were afraid of going to school because they thought their school could be the next target. And they had asked to meet with their New York State senator at the time, who refused to meet with them. That really hit me in my core as a mother, as someone who lived in the community, to see our young adults fearing to go to school because they fear that they might not go home. Also, in seeing where the country was and where it was heading, and the fact that we've had Roe be the law of the land for 49 years, and now all of a sudden it was coming into question. As a woman, as a mother of 2 daughters, I felt very strongly that we need to protect our rights, women's rights. So I ran for New York State Senate in 2018, and I ran against an incumbent who brought back a lot of funding for the district, an incumbent who was in majority, an incumbent who was very much had the support and the backing and a lot of funds for her campaign. I remember early on when I was calling people to ask for help and support, they would ask me who I was running against. And as soon as they would hear, they thought I had no chance. But we kept on plugging away. We had a grassroots campaign, and I went everywhere, and I spoke with whoever would wanted to listen to me. And in a race that everybody thought I would lose, I won with double digits. And my win was also instrumental in New York State Senate becoming a Democratic majority. And because of Democrats holding the majority, we were able to really pass so many legislations that used to go to Albany and would die because we didn't have the majority and it would never come to the floor for a vote. We were able to pass women's rights. We codified Roe. In state law, we passed really good voting rights. We passed sensible gun laws. The 4 years that I was there were really instrumental in making sure that the will of the people and the voices of New Yorkers throughout the state are being heard, and the legislations that are very important to the majority of the people in the state are being passed. Fast forward, I ran for re-election in 2022, and I regret to say that I lost, But that had also a lot of reasons. Redistricting was a big part of it, and not having it have the district known to us until late June was very difficult. I had a primary and then I had a general. I won my primary with 86%, but I did lose my general election in November.
I see. Okay, well, we're very sorry that happened, especially being an Iranian American woman, and having representation is very important. I want to move on to thank you, Senator, for sharing everything that you have done. I want to dig in a little bit, if I may, given the current situation with what's going on in Iran right now, and it has been going on since September and even beyond that. It's just that now the Western world has seen what the women have been subjected to for the past 43 years, which as an Iranian American or global citizen, we know about this. What are your thoughts and feelings about what's going on in Iran today?
So, as you said, I fully condemn the murderous and the barbaric Islamic Republic, who's had the reign of power for the last 43 years. Granted, this got highlighted this past September, but it is not a new thing. This has been going on for the last 43 years. And it is really important as a woman sitting here to make sure that we do everything we can to help and support the woman in Iran. We saw how women across the world galvanized to support the Iranian woman. It's really important for us not to ever forget the Mahsa Amini's death and all the deaths that have come since then. As the numbers were mentioned earlier today by Susan, there's several hundred women who have passed away, who have died for this cause, and many under age of 18. We need to make sure that the brutality of today and the past is not ignored. It is really important that the Iranian women know that we stand in solidarity with them, that we hear them, and that we would do whatever we can to support them. It is a cause that's very near and dear to me, and I think as women everywhere, we always have to stand up for other women. And right now in this country, women's rights are being under attack also.
Yeah, completely agree. So what can Americans do to help Iranian women today? I mean, we'll see. And we have a question coming in from Karen. We'll get to in a second. What can we do? Because as you can see, all of a sudden, it's highlighted and the movement, because what they're asking is for regime change and revolution, and the movement keep going. Protests are happening as we speak, even today, and in many cities across the US, if not global, and they keep continuing with the movement to show support, solidarity outside of Iran. But that's not enough, because now pretty much every politician, every celebrity, whether Iranian or none, and various governments, they know about this. But as you see, they're not moving fast enough, because executions are going on as we speak right now. It is the younger generation. This is what's new about this revolution versus the revolution of 1979, whereas school-age children, fearless, and women, obviously, they're going into the protests, and we're not sure if they're coming back. So what can Americans or the global world at large can do more to raise awareness and show support to the Iranian women, or Iranian population for that matter, in Iran?
So I'm a big believer, if you want to get something done, give the job to a woman.
Of course.
I think this is really, as we've seen it, this movement is very different than any other movement that has been going on in Iran. This has been a movement by women. This has been a movement that has really ignited in 40 different cities.
Mhm.
It is really important that we amplify the voice of the Iranian woman. It is really important that we keep this front and center and in the news. It is really important for women all over the world, if there are rallies, to go and support in these rallies and to speak up. I know that a few months ago, myself and Iranian American elected officials and candidates, about 14 of us, wrote a letter to the President Biden and asking for 3 different things. One of them was that to make sure that we highlight the brutality of this regime. The other was to ask for assistance in maintaining internet access so that the people of Iran can continue to expose the injustices that they are experiencing and highlight what is going on. Please, I implore you to write to your federal representatives and see what they can do to give those opportunities so that the international community can hear the voices of Iranian community, the Iranian women, young girls, and all who stand for this. The third thing that we had asked was that United States government asked the UN to investigate by a mechanism the crimes against humanity and committed by the Islamic Republic, and to kick them out of the UN's Women's Commission, which they did.
They did. They did.
And I was very happy to have been able to be speaking on that and making sure that those voices were being heard. I think we, women, whether in New York, whether in Iran, whether somewhere in Australia or somewhere in Europe, we all have the same needs. We all want to have the same rights.
Mhm.
It is imperative for us to always be united and to stand and support each other and make sure that our voices are being heard as a whole, as one group. Because in all honesty, we're living in 2023, and we're living in this wonderful country, United States of America. But I am looking and experiencing and seeing that my daughters or my grandchildren, my granddaughters will have less rights than my mother had. And I can't understand how they name this progress. Those rights were fought for. I stand on the shoulder of so many who fought for those rights. It is really important that I do my part now and fight for the next generation and the generations after that. And we can't take anything for granted.
Indeed, Senator, thank you very much. You're absolutely right. It's unbelievable to all of us that in 2023, we're still talking about these, basic issues that, as you know, women's rights are human rights. And we're fortunate to be in a country that at least allows us to have a voice and we're not silent. So on that note, I don't have any further questions. I want to thank you for your time. As you know, the chanting for this revolution has been women, life, freedom, and in Persian is Zindagi, Azaadi. So in the hope for a better future for just not Iranian women, for all women across the board, I want to say thank you for all you do. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to hand it over to Susan because there are a few people that have questions. If you just want to take control and address their questions, that'd be appreciated. Thank you,
Very,
Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And I guess the questions are in the chat. Whoever, let's just go ahead and just open it up and unmute yourself and ask the senator a question. I believe there was one earlier.
I think Maz had a question, and I think Karen might have had a question.
Okay,
Yeah.
Karen, are you with us? Karen,
They're both muted.
Karen, are you, I think you're muted. Could you unmute yourself and ask the senator your question?
I don't know if I'm the only Karen, but I didn't have a question, but I appreciated what she said. Unless there's something really specific other than writing to our federal representatives.
I think that's a general concern a lot of us have. We do want to assist in amplifying the voices as you called for, Senator. Are there on the ground groups here that we can work with that have one of their agenda items continuing to keep the pressure on our local governments, but also doing the sorts of things that you recommended, such as making sure that internet access is restored or somewhat available? Are there groups that you can specifically point us to that we can liaise with and give our support to?
I think Ms. Amini could do that much. Betty can do that much better than I can. She's very much an activist in this area and has held and done a lot of different rallies. And I think, go ahead, Betty, if you have any suggestions.
Yes, I do. If I post every rally that's going on, whether it's in New York City or other cities, on my Instagram page. There are different groups that have formulated as a result. One is Women Life Freedom NYC, and there's another group called Be the Voice. So these are groups that consistently every weekend, pretty much Saturday or Sunday, they're holding rallies, and they are getting very, very creative. For example, they've gone in front of the Iranian ambassador to the UN mission a few weeks ago, and three of the ladies stood in front with pretty much, just hanging themselves like this on execution style, and stood on 3 buckets. 3 different women stood on 3 different buckets, and they had, blood splattered all over the building to protest in front of his apartment building on Fifth Avenue, nevertheless. Or there was a silent demonstration last Saturday in front of the public library. Or they've gone into the Met and they've taken a space and they pretended to be dead, with the face of Mahsa Amini. So many different groups are doing creative things that are going on. Some demonstrations are larger than others, like the one we did on November 19th. It was from Times Square to the UN. And it wasn't just me, it was the group Women Life Freedom NYC. There was a huge group from Washington that came in, and myself. And we led from, Times Square. We had speeches, and then we went to the UN. So if you follow me on my Instagram, is my name, Betty Imamian. I do keep posting it. The next big one is February 11th. That's coming up. And if you could just show up there and be support, because when I did the Women's March I joined Women's March as a group, and I had a banner for NYC. We want to educate the non-Iranians, because the Iranians know what's going on, obviously. But we want to educate the non-Iranians and get Western media coverage so that the movement doesn't die down. It keeps going and going and going.
Thank you. So we're really talking about the young folks are organized through social media, and we can, and that's how we need to stay abreast, both in your Instagram account and others. Like Women Life Freedom NYC is entirely a social media thing, right? It doesn't have a web page or an organization.
Not yet. So what happened with that group? I'm independent activist, so I help all the groups, and I'm director of public relations for Persian Parade. So with that group, they met at the end of a rally, and they decided to form this group, as many others have. And what they have done is now they're formalizing more. Now they have a board. Now they have different committees with different initiatives. But it's not just them. It's many other groups that, they're holding various protests. They've gone in front of New York Times building. They've gone in front of the UN. And also there's a lot of Iranian celebrities there was just an exhibition by Shirin Neshat, 2 days ago in the city, that, she had a beautiful movie showing women, because also let's not forget the sexual torture going on right now in Iran as well. is not, I mean, it's bad enough you get arrested for, showing a little bit of your hair or demonstrating, but why the sexual torture? And she did this beautiful movie called The Fury that you would see in a huge hall. You would see different prison guards standing, and a couple of them like smoking a cigarette. And this beautiful woman that is wearing a see-through negligee or see-through something, a dress, she's just walking around, and you can see she's been abused, walking around, going from guard to guard to guard to guard to guard, which was very powerful message of what's going on right now in the prisons as we speak. I mean, I heard that, a mother-in-law was going to visit her daughter-in-law in prison. And she said, what can I bring you? She said, bring me a birth control pill. I mean, that's how bad this is. Because the idea is that, we strip you of your dignity, your integrity, your womanhood. And even if we release you from prison, these women are so traumatized that sadly, many of them commit suicide. And they're young. They're school-age children. I mean, my generation that did this revolution, I wasn't there and I wasn't participating, but they didn't go through this. What these young kids, and they're fearless. They are, and the parents are fearful of their kids going to these demonstrations, not coming back, not knowing where their bodies are, what's happening to them, how they can find them. And so that's why, we feel responsible and we feel guilty of all the rights and the freedoms that we have here. And the only difference between us and the women in Iran is we had the opportunity to leave, whether it was pre-revolution or beginning of the revolution. That's the only difference that we have. I mean, we're their equal and we are their voice, and we will keep going and until, there is absolute regime change. So I urge you to, you can follow me. I keep posting about it. There's different petitions going around right now to sign that comes through as well. This UN initiative that Senator Kaplan was talking about, that was signed and that was done. So, the noise keeps going on and on and on and on.
Well, thank you for helping us know where and how we can make noise, and we will do that. I think we're now I'm going to turn it back over to Pramila, who's going to introduce our next speaker. But I want to thank both you, Betty, and you, Senator Kaplan, for a really very fascinating and inspiring conversation this morning. Thank you very much.
If I may just close,
yes.
If I may close with
Please.
the fact that, first of all, thank you so much. If you or anyone has any access to media, write letters to the editors. Let's keep this voice going, because I know we all share the same hope, a hope for a free Iran where woman, life, and freedom is not just a rallying cry, but a reality that I believe is possible, and it's time for it to happen now.
Thank you very much, Senator Kaplan, and I really appreciate all your points. And I also, appreciate what Betty Emamian has said, especially describing what the young women are doing who are basically spearheading, the movement in Iran right now. And the thing is, as one of our participants is pointing out in the chat, Maz, that, it's easy to see so many of the parallels between what is happening in Iran and the number of rights being denied to us right here in the US. And myself, as an Indian American, right now, there are writers and journalists being imprisoned in India for speaking out. As a poet, I feel that poetry is one of the most forceful ways in which we can really communicate our emotions, our ideas about the world. And so I'm really happy that we have an Iranian American poet who's joining us today, Rooja Mohassessy. She's an Iranian-born poet and educator. She's a 2022 McDowell Fellow and a graduate of the Pacific University MFA program in Oregon. Her debut collection, When Your Sky Runs Into Mine, was the winner of the 22nd annual Elixir Poetry Award and is hot off the press from Elixir Press. Her poems and reviews have appeared in a number of magazines such as Narrative Magazine, Calyx, Southern Hemisphere Humanities Review, the Florida Review, the Rumpus, and many others. So I'm really excited that she can join us today and we'll hear her poems. Welcome, Rooja.
Thank you, Pramila. Thank you for the invite. It's an honor to be here. And thank you, Susan, as well. And Senator Kaplan, it's an honor. And thank you for the years of service. I am going to read 2 new poems that are in response to the ongoing revolution. And then I'm going to, if there's time, read another 2 from my forthcoming collection, When Your Sky Runs Into Mine. Zindagi, Azaadi. A plea. Zindagi, Azaadi for the ends of our daughter's hair and imported tubs of dye by our bathroom sinks, promising Western overtones in violet and blue. For our interrupted narrative, where sunbeams still remember the ritual of reaching through a window to catch the careless toss of a handful of hair out of a face. For highlights, growing out in tension and mistrust at the same ordinary pace as elsewhere. For our roots, pounded with surahs and solemnity, pinned and pressed to grow yet lie in place under the Imam's benediction, our shelter from the imperialist threat. When really, all our daughters need is a little diversion, same as elsewhere, volume, the cheerfulness of henna, the stripping bleach of an influencer to be seen on TikTok, Botox, notwithstanding the dark and tweets and the chirping discontent and filtered static. Tonight, we feed our men lavash, paneer sabzi, daughters refuse supper and walk away, turning their backs on the goldfish that swim for their reflections, crossing the dusk of courtyards, where heavy-hearted the pomegranates crack and wash the autumn light in ablution. Tonight, at every street corner perches a wide-angled gaze boring into flesh. .68 caliber paint, plastic pellets, ammunition, cudgels are made halal tonight. Heaven ordained to arrive from Shar Qarb, the 4 directions made halal tonight. In this twilight, before and after the Maghrib prayer, beatings will be halal tonight. Surveillance cameras roll and note the degree of coverage. The wantonness of our girls whirling in Western ways, flames devouring headscarves, the imported purple neon, crazed ends of millennial hair gawking in lipstick pink. Tonight, the mobile phones held high by a chain of sons corral to document a midriff bared on the pavement, the panic, pinched tips of 2 petite dunes, pre-adolescence braless and blood, flowing unrestrainable into a pattern before she had a chance to bleed and be kissed on one cheek, then the other, by us mothers, her aunts, great aunts, before Madarjan had the chance to brush her clean washed bangs out of her eyes, kiss her forehead, and compliment her for coming of age. This next one is in response to a video recording that I watched of Nasrin Shah Karami. Nasrin Shah Karami was Nikah Shah Karami's mother. Nikah was one of the early faces of the protest. She was a 16-year-old girl that was killed, I think, about 4 or 5 days after Mahsa Amini. And I'm sure you've seen images of her, the girl who's singing with a mic, and she goes missing on the night of the protest, and the family cannot find her for 9 days. They go to every single office and institution, organization they can think of, and they're told that she's not here. After 9 days, the body is delivered to the family. And Nasrin, in this recording, she with just chilling composure, she relates the circumstances and the condition of the body and the circumstances of, you know, of what actually, the truth of what actually happened to her daughter. And we find out that her aunt, Nika's aunt and uncle, are arrested and forced into making these fake confessions that the girl had fallen to her death. But Nasreen sends this recording to media outlets in the West, to Radio Farda, and relates what happened, which is after 9 days, when the body is delivered to the family, they prepare the body for burial, and the body is kept in the morgue. And then overnight, the Revolutionary Guard people come and steal the body and bury it in some far-flung village to avoid publicity and protests. And this just, to me, was so disturbing, worse than any sort of Greek tragedy. I just could not believe my ears. And also the courage that it took for her. I hope she's safe, Nasreen, Nika's mother, because you know, these people are cruel, as we have seen. So this poem is dedicated to her. Sweet is the truth of a nation on your lips. And it has an epigraph by Yusuf Komunyaka. The river stones are listening. For Nasreen Shah Karami, Nika's mother. Talch, bitter is the afternoon and minutes away from midnight, when they are the street corner where her mobile phone is silenced for good. The postmortem, 9 days and nights in a morgue, where perspiring walls preserve forensic details. The truth on a toe tag, the once smooth and rolling slope of her skull depressed to a hollow, broken cheekbones loosely housing scant teeth. They are the repeated and again sarkoop, sar as in a daughter's head, unveiled, luring light. Koob is the pounding momentum of nightsticks. The rest of her, Nasreen, you say, was Salem. Salem as in wholesome, her fingers, thighs, the lengths of her arms, her soles, the torso stitched shut. They are sin, committed before the first light on the 10th day. Najes, the ambush on the dead, the unchaste pairs of hands on the gurney. After your hands, Nasreen, had dressed her in 3 pristine sheets of kafan, after rites and ablutions, after the warm stream had run its course down the right, then length of her and left her scented with camphor and prayers. They, a grave hacked through the shallow roots of thorn and thistle, the haste, a hearse, and daughter lost in a convoy of country dust before the first azan. Talch, bitter now the silence on your street, Nasreen. Shirin, the truth of a nation on your lips. In a house in mourning, rows of gladiolas are lined up against the wall now. Stiff swords in tall buckets, their tips catching inklings of light. Thank you. So I'm not sure how we're doing with timing. Should I know that, should I read another poem, or how are we doing
Yeah,
with time?
absolutely. You can read a couple more poems.
Okay. So this poem is sort of autobiographical, and it relates the early days of how our lives changed in Iran after the revolution, when the hijab became mandatory. And I was, as a child, I was a very devout little child. I used to like to pray, and I used to like to wear the chador. And I'm hoping that this poem sort of differentiates the difference between devotion and religious oppression, that the issue here is not the hijab. Obviously, I think we all know that. By age 10, I understood the heft of fabrics and the significance of Black after the revolution. I had no way to know what to feel about the woman folded inside those cascading yards of darkness that transported her like a deluge down the sidewalks of Tehran, the hem kicked up, flourishing with dirty spray, with every step the sharp edge of a handbag, her elbow jutted at a sudden angle like a hooded blade. We raised the arms of our navy manteau to guide the passing breeze to our armpits and watched the chador prevail. Overlapped under the chin, the obsidian length falling weighted like the curtain that segregated sexes at weddings. At noon, where we wilted in queue for a cool bottle of Coke, inching our way toward the shade of the shop awning, the chador shone unruffled, brilliant with the synthetic glare of a raven. If a man brushed past, it hid one eye, both lips at a crooked angle, we'd eat our words mid-sentence and stare, our parents jerking us away, worried we'd fall into a harm worse than a manhole. A harm even they could not save us from. From behind, the sole seam receded askance, like pursed lips, the hem furtive, not flaring, not the petal-stitched hand-sewn fringe of a homemade chador, the awkward half-circle stamped with flowers. But sudden in its zeal, the surreptitious weed had now appeared, as in Solomon's temple, fully fledged, too deep to uproot. At home, we played dress-up, sashayed from parlor to kitchen, pulling the coy cloth over our heads. It slipped like a caress, exciting our hair with static. I'd almost outgrown my favorite. Covered in lilies, it hovered a full foot from the floor like an angel and kept still as I bowed to kiss, then touch my brow to the fragrant clay of Karbala. Thank you, thank you. I will read one more. This one is dedicated to my grandmother. It's also autobiographical. My family was not particularly devout or religious, but my grandmother was devout, and I used to like to pray with her, and I used to like to fast with her during Ramadan. And as children, we're not allowed to fast, or not until you're past puberty. And I would beg to fast with her, and she would be very reluctant, and she would say, well, you can fast for a half day. And she would sort of very reluctantly wake me up in the morning, hoping I wouldn't wake up. And then I would go out and play with the neighbors and forget that I was fasting, and I would get thirsty and drink some water. And I would come back and say, I forgot, and I drank water. She said, well, if you forgot, it doesn't count. It's okay if you forget. And right, so this is it's called Ramazan in Tajrish, and Tajrish is an area in the north of Tehran by the Alborz Mountains. Ramazan in Tajrish for Mada. You nudged me with a whisper to rise an hour before Azan from under the thick of dove feathers, warm with your love for God and me, the musty grandchild who had rushed the weekdays to arrive at you, and you were already more in love and old like walnut trees. Little did I understand of the hours past the shuffle of shadows, why they felt solicitous, safe only at your home, like uncles who dropped their manliness at your door, removed their shoes, and stooped through the narrow frame to greet you. Whether I hurried out of your bed to meet God at my paisley prayer mat, the cotton janamas you hemmed by hand, or to putter after you out and into sunlit rooms was moot. Little did I understand of the prayer in your gate. For the faint, dehydrated child, the afternoon hours ran from the setting sun, while your white chador shifted faithfully about you, sprinkled with flowers, differential with the remaining minutes. Though too young to fast, even then I knew, when I pestered you with a 10-year-old's dogged demands to rouse me for Sahari, the day-old lavash we tore like a promise between us, buttered at near dawn, and to keep our secret from Mama and Baba. I knew in your low cloud voice that would nudge my sleeping cheek only once. Did you think I would not hear you? In the reluctance of it lodged the caress of those childhood days. Thank you all. This one, I guess, is dedicated to all the matriarchs that we love.
Thank you, Rooja. This was just beautiful. Thank you so much. I mean, it was very, very deep and heartfelt poems. And I noticed the extreme contrast between the innocence of childhood experience versus the horror that we are been talking about, and which you also describe in your first two poems. The contrast is jarring, and so we see both the beauty and the reality. You know, it's like a shock of opposites that we experience as we hear your poetry. If anybody would like to comment or ask questions, please do so. You can also use the raising hand option on your Zoom. Thanks.
We are fortunate to have Antja on the line from Italy. She's working on a poetry project called Hair. If you could tell us about your project.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's a wonderful evening for me, seeing you here. Oh, I see I'm disturbed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, and yeah, we are doing a big project that's called Hair in the Wind in solidarity with the women in Iran. And I would like all poets among you invite to participate. I've already collected about 80 poems from poets from all over the world in all languages, and of course, mainly Italian also. And we will have about 3 performances here in Italy. The whole thing will be around a sculpture of mine. I'm a poet and a visual artist. And long time ago, I did this sculpture. Maybe you can see it on the photo. It's a very big head of hairs, wild hairs, like the hairs of the witch. No?
Mm-hmm.
So the hair is symbol of freedom for the women all over the world. And I mean, that the hair is a kind of repression. This is also in our history in Europe, a fact. And so we are going to do 3 performances in Milan, one in the Little Museum of Poetry, which is in Piacenza. It's the only museum dedicated only to poetry. And then there will be the 1st of April, a performance in Rome.
Mm.
And even it's spread it out to France. So they will have a performance in Paris and one in Marseille. So this is very nice because, as I think Pramila said before, that poetry is the way you can really connect to people with other languages, to all the women in the world. We are also collaborating very much with Indian women because very, very active politically and for the women issues.
Yeah.
So please join my project. You can contact me under my name on Facebook, and then I send you all the details. And thank you very much for this initiative and all this wonderful, the reading and all the thoughts that are changed here. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anja. Can you, on the chat, can you put the link how people can contact you to send you their poems? That'll be great. Thanks. If anyone has questions or comments for Rooja, could you please unmute yourself and speak?
Hi, Rooja. First of all, thank you very much. Heartbreaking. You brought tears to my eyes, and thank you for all that you do. I wanted to, if I may, so we end on a lighter note, share a similar experience that I had like yours, fasting. A few years ago in my adult life, I decided to fast for Ramadan. I said, let me see how this goes. And So, you know, I was working and I had a suit on, and I'm talking to my mom during the day. I said, hey, Mom, you know, I decided to fast to show that, you know, I'm doing this, I'm spiritual. So first question she's asked me is, what are you wearing? I said, I'm wearing a suit, you know, regular. She goes, what length is it? I said, kind of down to mine. And she goes, oh, okay. And what else are you doing? I said, well, I'm just not eating all day. She goes, okay. What are you doing after work? I said, well, you know, after it's over, you know, which is sunset, I'm going out to dinner with my friends. She goes, is that it? I said, yeah, I'm just not eating all day. So she turns around and she goes, Betty, darling, this is not a diet. This is fasting, which means that, and as she's talking to me, I'm panicking. I'm going like this with my suit. I'm pulling down my skirt to come down to my knee. She's like, it's a month of atonement. You go within yourself. You go within to God. You reach out to people. It's not just not eating. You know, you do good. You pass it on. You pay it forward. It's not just, oh, okay, after this, I'm going to dinner with my friends. No, that's not what this is about. So I can relate to you. And I'm like, oh my God. And she was so right. She was so right. So when you said that, I started laughing and I said, Mom, you're right. It's not a diet. It's a whole, you know, whole thing that you have to do. Thank you for, you know, for your poem. And I just wanted to add one more thing on behalf of the Iranian women. You know, when Anthony Bourdain visited Iran a few years ago, and he went and talked to the Iranian women, especially the women in universities, he said that we are the most educated in the Middle East, and we are the, you know, the most strongly opinionated in the Middle East. And my mom said, I'm surprised he didn't say, you know, in the world. 60% currently of Iranian students in universities are women, just to share some statistics with you. I mean, for the school-age children to start this revolution is just remarkable because they're extremely brave, and we are very proud of them. We need more representations as minorities, as Iranian Americans, and obviously Iranian American women. And we are all bleeding. And I'm not just talking about the women, the families outside of Iran, we're all bleeding. So if you run into an Iranian American, you know, just give them a hug. Just say, you know, we feel you, we are behind you, because we really need that right now. We are going towards the Persian New Year, which is first day of spring, March 21st, which is Nowruz. It's not going to be as festive as years before. The tri-state area, they're not celebrating. You know, usually we have galas, we have Nowruz at the Met, and so many different organizations hold these celebrations. They're not doing that right now to show solidarity with the mourning and with all the losses in Iran. Persian Parade is going to be on Sunday, April 23rd. We're discussing how we're going to address this, because usually we have representation of different provinces of Iran with dance groups with that province. So right now we're discussing, do we hold the dance? How, it's a fine line, showing respect, celebrating culture, and in solidarity with, you know, with people in Iran. And so, you know, definitely the world sees us. You know, Iran has different image right now, especially Iranian women. Finally, you know, they're viewed as brave, as educated, as pioneers. And that part, I'm glad that we have a totally different image as we do, because I belong to many different women organizations, and I'm heavily invested in, you know, diversity, and DEI, equity, and inclusion. And every time I go there, I say, you know, the discussions right now in the West is always about Black, white, and, you know, especially in the US, about Hispanic as well. There's a whole other, Susan and I had this discussion last night, this whole other sector of women, minority women, that are in chief chairs, directors positions, that, you know, by culture, they're not, you know, they're more reserved, they're not boisterous, and they need to be seen. And I've always said, you know, just because we speak with an accent, not that there's anything wrong with it, it doesn't mean we think with one. So do give us a chance to have more seats at the table, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty, for sharing all of that. And it'll also be helpful if you can put us in touch with organizations in Suffolk that we can work with. So on the chat, or maybe in a separate email,
Sure.
if you can send us a list of organizations, even if it's like one or two, that'll be fantastic.
Sure.
And I would like to thank everybody for coming today. Thank you, Rooja, for sharing your beautiful poetry. You can also put a link to your book on chat so people can buy your book. Betty, thank you so much for coming today and for being a moderator and being so active. And we would like to support you in some of the programs that you are doing.
Thank you.
Those who are now, and if you're not a now member, you may want to become a member of National Organization for Women. Those of you who are here, please don't leave if you're now members, because we need to have elections and talk about now business. So please hang on for our now meeting. So thank you all for coming today. It has been really a pleasure seeing all of you. And please note all the links on the chat so you can stay in solidarity and link up with the organizations and the work that they are doing. Thank you. And please come for future Now programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. See you soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good luck.
So hi, everyone. So that was just an amazing, amazing program. So I'm glad you're all sticking on for our Now meeting. It's hard to make the switch from the event to business. Yeah. So I tried to save everything so we can, have the links to the organizations and the social media pages.
So that's always been a problem for me, typically, because I'm not good at this, saving the chat, because if you get off, it's gone, right? So, but there's a way to save the chat.
Yeah, so there are 3 dots at the bottom of the Zoom.
Right.
So when you click on that,
yeah.
it says Save Chat.
Got
So
it.
then it
Yeah.
gets saved on your computer.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Little trick. You just have to
I
learn
know
them.
all of us learn from each other.
Thank you. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we need to start off with elections, and Juliet will see us through that.
Hi.
Hi.
And I
Juliet.
also want to mention that, in case anyone missed the news, Equal Rights Amendment for New York State passed the legislator for the 2nd time. So that
that's
means it's
fabulous.
on the ballot in 2024. So that's definitely something we have to make sure that we make public aware of. And yeah, so just really exciting day.
That's great. I didn't know it was that quickly up in front of the, I didn't know, I thought it would be later in the year. That's awesome. Get that out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, when did this happen? Last week?
I was in Albany.
So
Tuesday,
this past
on the
week.
24th.
Oh, Tuesday.
So I just put in the link. There's a few articles, but I think the NYCLU press release gives like a really in-depth information about it. So I just put that link in the chat. But anyway, I thought it was worth mentioning because I know we've all been in big support of that. So
thank you.
Yes, fabulous.
Okay, so I'll do I'll do the formalities of the election, because I think that we should anyway, or I'll do abbreviated formalities. So as you know, the board appointed me this year to be the head of the nomination committee for the election of the 2023 Now Suffolk board. A call for nominations was sent to our membership via email on December 3rd, 2022, seeking nominations for president, vice president of programming, vice president of membership and communications, secretary, and treasurer. Nominations were closed on January 28th, 2023. In response, the nominations received and accepted were for President Pramila, Vice President of Programming Susan, and Secretary Deb. Those who have active Now memberships can vote in this election. I'm not sure if I know, just for record's sake, if someone makes note of Kathy's last name, if she's a member. Um,
Hi, Kathy.
hi,
Hi.
Kathy.
Hi,
Hi,
Kathy.
it's Kathy Walzak. And yes,
Okay.